All right, well, the procedure will be the same as what you've just observed. And so we'll start with 2 minutes for each of you to introduce yourselves, anything about yourself, your background, your experience is relevant that you would like the audience to know. And we'll start again with Mr. Asbell on the left. Excuse me, Mr. Finkel. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Hello? Can you hear me? I talk loud anyway. Thank everybody for coming tonight. First of all, I'd like to thank my wife, Tanya, and my daughter and son for allowing me to run for sheriff because I got their permission before I decided to. So a little bit about myself. Brian Finkel, like I said, I basically grew up in this area for 30 years. I've been in law enforcement for 30. I've been the police chief for 20. A little bit about my family background. Came from a blue-collar family. My dad was an electrician. My mom worked for Illinois Bell, and they farmed during the day. So I came from a farming family. The reason I want to run for sheriff because I have a passion for law enforcement and public safety. My main goal as Peoria County Sheriff is to keep people safe in their churches, in their homes, in their schools, in place of worship like this. That's our #1 priority is keeping people safe. One of the reasons I decided to get into law enforcement is I've been an advocate for seniors for years, 20 years to say. My grandmother was a victim of a financial crime. So I saw how much it hurt her financially, and I saw how much it hurt her emotionally. So I've been an advocate for seniors for the past 20 years. I've started programs for juveniles, kids, to bicycle safety we've had, police explorers we've had, positive tickets we've had. So I've been an advocate for children, trying to make a positive contact with them. Anytime the police had a contact, we wanted to make it positive. And that's not bad, getting a free hamburger and french fry. So that's some of the programs I've started. The other thing was I've been to the best law enforcement schools in America. I've been to the FBI Academy. I've been through the DEA schools. So as far as training, I have plenty of training. I'm also on the Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board, which I was appointed by the governor, what sets the standards for law enforcement, corrections, deputies throughout the state. Worked on the body cams legislation. The training board oversees the body cams. So I have a passion for law enforcement, and I want to work for the people. And I'm going to be the people's sheriff. And my time is up.
Mr. Asbell.
Good evening, everyone. I'm the other Brian. I'm Brian Asbell, and I am the Peoria County Sheriff. And I'll just give a little bit of my background. Born and raised here in Peoria County, lifelong resident. I'm one of 8 kids, farm family as well. Our parents taught us the value of hard work and the meaning of integrity at a young age. And because of that, I entered into a career in public service. I joined the Army at the age of 17. After the Army, I came back and I started my career at the Sheriff's Office. I'm kind of the kid that started in the mailroom and worked his way up to the CEO in 23 years. I started as a correctional officer. I then became a sergeant. I then became a patrol deputy. I then became a detective. Then in 2010, I became the jail superintendent under sheriff. That was kind of a life-changing event for me. And I remained in that position up until last August, and that's when I was appointed the 56th sheriff of Peoria County. And that's something I'm very proud of. I'm the youngest sheriff in the history of the sheriff's office. But this was the first time through an appointment process that they looked at professional standards. It was a competitive process. Typically, the party would pick someone midterm if it's past the 2-year mark, and that was the person who was appointed by the board. In my instance, this was opened up to anyone for applications, and we went through a bipartisan panel, and they chose me. They chose me. It was a unanimous vote by the county board because they said I had the education, experience, and most of all, the institutional knowledge to run this department. So I look forward to answering your questions tonight. Thank you.
Thanks. You get to go first on this one, Mr. Asbell. I suspect that there are a number of people here who don't really understand what the sheriff does in the whole scope of the role. And so please explain that. And of course, Mr. Fengel, you'll have a chance to add where you understand and educate the folks a little bit.
Thank you. Yeah, Illinois statute defines the role, duties, and responsibility of all Illinois sheriffs. Number 1, the sheriff is the warden of the jail. Number 2, the sheriff is responsible for court security. Number 3, the sheriff's conservator of peace and director of public safety. And lastly, the sheriff is responsible for service of all warrants, orders, judgments, civil process. Most people think of the sheriff, they think of the law enforcement, which is a big part of what we do, but the reality is less than 25% of the department, and that's 180 employees, is a commissioned deputy. The largest thing the sheriff does is the jail. There's the corrections unit. It has the most employees. It has the largest part of the budget, almost 65% of the budget, and it also has the most inherent risk. So those are the 4 pillars of the sheriff. Where you stay at tonight, your homeowners association, you live within the jurisdiction of Peoria City. Peoria City Police is the largest law enforcement agency in the county. They have the most officers. Again, that's the 4 pillars of the sheriff's job. Thank you.
Yes, the sheriff is in charge of the courthouse maintenance, also the maintenance at the jail. You're also responsible for the deputies out on the road and also the civil process portion of the sheriff's department. And that's all I have.
Okay. If you would, Mr. Fengel, please talk a bit about what you think are the most important skills needed to function at a high level as sheriff.
What I think and what I have is over 20 years of law enforcement executive experience. I've been on all kinds of different boards and commissions that have gotten me the information and the experience that I need to be sheriff. What I think we need is somebody that can bring people together, people to the table, and we've got a lot of things going on out there in challenging times. So what I can do is bring the people to the table, address the problems, and come up with a solution.
Mr. Asbell, most important skills?
Leadership, passion. That's, in a nutshell, you have to be a strong leader right now. The sheriff's office, no different than other municipal departments, but the county took a major budget reduction in 2017, which required us to reorganize the whole department. We lost 19 positions. We lost over $1.1 million in our budget. So leadership, you have to have people want to do their job, and they have to want to do it correctly. Knowledge too. Institutional knowledge. You have to know that balance where if you have to put more in the corrections division, you got to take away from something. You have to know the impact what that has. So those are my 2. Passion.
Okay. Next question. Why do you want to be sheriff? Longer.
I really need a job. In 2010, I became jail superintendent, and at that time, the jail population was over 600 detainees. The cost of incarceration is over $80 per day. But that sent me on a mission, And I started looking at ways to lower our costs, and lowering the inmate count was the biggest thing to do. That opened the door, and it's opened my eyes to a lot of issues, and I can talk about criminal justice reform, but I really saw it. I saw that the jail is the largest mental health institution downstate Illinois. I saw that substance abuse disorders were rising at a record pace. These were all causations of crime. So my goal as sheriff is to finish what I started with this goal. 600. Today, our population's below 300. Some of these programs that we put in place is about helping people. That's why I got into this business. It's to help people. And that's what I want to finish.
The reason I wanted to be sheriff is not only to be a crime fighter, we've got to address the crime problem, okay? We've got a problem, and we need to come up with a solution. The jail is one aspect of the sheriff's department. Also, you have the courthouse, okay? During my career, I've came up with programs that help people, okay? Use the Narcan, the Safe Passages program, but what we need to do is have somebody that's going to be tough on crime, okay, but yet be fair with people that are in jail to try to help them. The number one problem is jobs. We need to get jobs to get people to work so they stay out of jail. The jail population has went down, okay, because we're not holding people longer. We're letting them out on notice to appears. They're getting back into the community. So we have to have somebody that's going to be tough on crime, and that's what I will be, tough on crime. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fingal, now's your chance to say what you might want to change about the Sheriff's Department if, in fact, you were elected.
Okay, what I would like to see is better communication with all the agencies throughout Peoria County. Communication might be getting everybody on the same computer system, networking between agencies. One thing I want to see is the way we report, okay, the reporting system. We need to look at innovative change as far as if your mailbox gets run over, I want to see about putting a program online where you can file a report online so you don't have to send a deputy all the way out to Elmwood and waste resources. So ways that we can do it smarter to save money. The other thing is look at the police districts. I've had a lot of questions about the police districts. What I'll work with is looking at the numbers where the crimes are and try to put the resources there, because that's a smart way to do policing. Whatever the stats say, and we need an analyst following up with all the data. It's data driven. So that is what I'm going to do to try to solve the crime problem.
Well, you've been in the job, Mr. Asbell, a year and a half?
6 months.
6 months, okay. I give you a little extra credit, sorry. Well, after that period of time and experience on the job, you probably have some things you want to change over the next few years as well, so have a go at that.
I'll go back to when I was jail superintendent. I went into that job after several years with the goal of shutting the jail down, not having that, not needing that, attacking the causations of crime. I think that's true crime fighting. Understanding the socio-economic factors which cause crime, knowing that people cause crime because of treatable mental illness, knowing that they cause because of substance abuse disorders, knowing that they cause crime for survival. I'm very involved with the jobs program. In fact, we started the jobs partnership at the jail 4 years ago, but we've had 2 formal reentry classes. Part of my job as sheriff, at least 2 days a week, I'm out knocking on doors for employers, telling them to take a chance and hire these individuals. The key word's recidivism. $80 a day. I want this money that we're saving from not housing people in the jail to go back into the community, back into our school systems, so hopefully they don't even cause or have crime in the first place. That's what I want to finish as sheriff.
Given your experience so far, what do you think is the current largest need of the Sheriff's Department, an unmet need, and how would you approach achieving that?
Money. The budget's a huge thing. The budget dictates what we can do, but I'll say right now, the largest problem that I personally see, it's twofold. I'll say behavior health. Behavior health includes mental illness, substance abuse disorders, as well as our suicide prevalence rate in the area, and community relations. We all know what the police and community relations have been this last couple of years. We know we're Peoria rated in Wall Street 24/7. So I think that is a priority. And I've taken, in 6 months, I've done so much even to help improve those relationships. I work hand in hand with Peoria City. I'm down there. This last weekend, we had a simulation class to let people from the community come out and see what it was like to make these decisions as a police officer. The scenarios are one thing, but the best part of the day was the dialogue afterwards. These honest communications where it was non-confrontational. It was eye-opening from both sides. Thank you.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. From your study of the Sheriff's Department, what do you think is the largest need, and how would you go about addressing it?
I think addressing the mental health issue, getting all the employees in the jail certified through CIT training, basically for mental health, so they understand the mental health issue. Mental health is huge. I think anything, and everybody will agree, that is why people end up in jail. Substance abuse and mental health. So that's what I will focus on. The other thing is a recruitment process to try to go out and get good people, recruiting them and wanting them to come here to Peoria. We've got to go out and look in these college campuses. Sometimes police recruiting gets tough, so we need to go out and actively recruit people to try to get them here to Peoria and get the best and the brightest.
Thanks. Somebody wanted to know how the department, and each of you, your own departments, how you deal with addicts who are found with drugs, and if current practice is what it should be.
Okay. Basically, we started Safe Passages programs, so if we find somebody with heroin or somebody that needs help through the addiction process, we've got a process where we can get them into gateway facilities in Springfield. We're not going to charge them, okay? We're going to try to help them. And that's what we've done with the Narcan, the Safe Passages, to try to help these people get back on their feet. And the people we're going to help aren't the people that are a threat to law enforcement or are not a threat to the community. So that's what we're doing. We're not charging them if they've got minimal amounts. And this is a program, if they've got multiple offenses, they won't even fit into the program. So Safe Passages is what we've been using.
The Safe Passages, and I'm a fan of that program, but the problem is there isn't bed space. Going back to the jail sometimes will save lives of these people with addictions. In my career, I've talked to parents and said, you're better to have the charges against them, have them arrested so we can monitor them. When I started as a jail superintendent in 2010, there was no full-time mental health staff there. That was a priority. The jail is the largest mental health institution south of I-80. We have the people there. We've started in-house programs like a CIT program. We have in-house counseling, but my goal is, what I'm working on right now is MAT treatment, which is medical assisted treatment for those with addictions. And it's not just heroin, it's all drugs. There's still cocaine issues on our streets, alcoholism. And these again, are all causations of crime. I want to circle back though real quick about recruiting outside of our area. I think we have wonderful people right here in Peoria County and Peoria City that we can hire. Those are the ones that need the jobs. It's just finding the right ones and getting them hired. I just want to add that.
We have time for a few minutes of questions from the audience, and here's one already. Go ahead.
We've talked a lot about the mental health of those who commit crimes. How will you maintain your officers' mental health as well as your own, including developing compassion and empathy?
Did everybody hear that question? The question is recognizing the mental health issues related to inmates and offenders. The question is, what should the sheriff do about maintaining the mental health of his staff or her staff, case may be?
Very good question. And what I'll look at is putting a wellness program in place. Officers are human. They need attention too. And if there's somebody that needs help, we have programs that will go out there and try to help them. But very good question.
I'm only as good as the people below me, and I know that. So I invest into my employees. We have EAP, we have a wellness program in place. But it also starts with them. When second part of your question is making sure they treated people with dignity and respect. That starts with the hiring process. I've got 3 rules for anyone that hires for the sheriff's office, and I've been doing most of the hiring since 2010 because they all start in the jail before we put them in the street for the most part. 3 rules. Number 1, you always tell the truth. It's a job of integrity. If you compromise that, you're not working for me. Number 2, you treat everyone with dignity and respect. I don't care if it's me. I don't care if it's someone in the public. I don't care if it's a detainee in the jail. You treat people with dignity and respect. And the last rule is an honest day's work for honest day's pay. So it starts at day 1. It does. It starts at day 1. You hire the right people. You set expectations. And you have a common vision. And they'll follow you.
This young lady here.
Hi. So as I'm listening to you guys, first I want to say I'm a community organizer and I do activism. So Black and brown communities is my sweet spot. And there was a trigger that I heard, which was tough on crime. And when I hear that, my sensors go off because I think about the 80s and the early 90s where tough on crime meant that Black and brown people were going to be disproportionately affected by decisions made regarding law enforcement and incarceration rates. So, with that being said, I would like to know, what exactly did you mean when you say tough on crime? And I would also like to know from you, what are your methods as it relates to dealing with crime in the community? And then also, how many African Americans have either of you hired since your time as sheriffs?
Tough on crime is, crime has no color. So what I meant by tough on crime is people breaking the law. And people that break the law and the people that are victimized, they do want something done. But it's not based on any color or anything like that. As far as how many people have I hired, it's well over 10, I think, over the years. African American, Black, Asian, females, variety. So, I mean, our department is smaller, but if you look at the sheriff's department, the question would be, what's the percentage there based on Peoria County statistics?
Causations of crime is tough on crime. Again, going back to understanding the social economic factors. A game-changing part of my life is some books that I've read, Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, and it kind of opened my eyes. There's a video out there on YouTube. You can see it right now. It's called The 13th. There's these shows that open my eyes where I see where I now today as an administrator in criminal justice that I can change some of these problems. And they are problems. If you dig into them, there's truth in what happened. It's continued to happen. So when I'm tough on crime, I'm not weak on crime. I've arrested a lot of people over my years. I was aggressive. That's how you move up in law enforcement. You have to get those arrests. But it was eye-opening when I came back from being on the street or a detective to being the jail superintendent. So my focus on, again, is the causations of crime. Understanding that and trying to defeat those. That's how I'm going to be tough on crime.
And how many minorities?
Minorities? Well,
Specifically black, that's what I'm interested in.
I feel that it should be proportionate. I've only made one appointment as undersheriff since I've been in, and it was the first African-American female in the history of the sheriff's office. And it was because I believe what she can do. The assistant jail superintendent is an African-American female. She earned everything she got. She was the interim while I was the interim sheriff. I don't know offhand. Many is my answer.
It's the gentleman in the second row there.
Sheriff Asbell, your emphasis to me is jail superintendent, and that's good. Under Sheriff McCoy, which you serve, is there any aspect of that leadership, since you would have been second in command, is there anything that you wish had not occurred under Sheriff McCoy while you were employed as jail superintendent? Like complaints, people wanted to complain at the jail. McCoy said,
I'll just answer it this way.
Yeah.
I'm not Mike McCoy.
But
I'm
you're
Brian
running under
Asbell.
his record, aren't you?
I have 187 people that work for me. You'd have that same argument. I'm Brian Asbell. I've earned everything I've got. I've worked my way up through the chain. I've worked my way into different jobs. I've started at the bottom and worked myself up. So I guess I don't understand that question. I'm Brian Asbell. I have my own philosophies. I have my own way I run business. And that's how I run business.
I guess the best way that you and I have clarity is I'll make it simple. I've heard of your accomplishments, and as I listened to your accomplishments, it made it appear there was no sheriff, that in those years since 2010, you were operating as the sheriff. But in reality, there was a sheriff in place, and you in 2010 were the superintendent, correct?
Correct.
So, now that that is clear, my question is simply this. Is there any policies that were instituted during that tenure that you wish that did not occur?
I would say it's just the opposite. There was the lack of policies. And that's why in my first 6 months, that's what we're doing, a complete overhaul.
Good.
You'll see that. A lot of times generational, there's older people in law enforcement that they don't like the change and keeping up with technology. Strong policies and procedures, as an administrator, it's risk management. You have to have those. As an employee, you want to know what the rules are. No, day one, when I started at the job as sheriff, that's what we're doing. It's going to take us well over a year to change all those policies and procedures because you have to have those.
Good.
There was another question earlier, but I'll get to you.
Oh, my question was funneled to her.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
In the interest of full disclosure, I was a previous Peoria County auditor before the individual that's there today. Back then, okay, there are some statutes in 55 ILCS. One gives the elected officials control of their office. Then there's the one for the auditor that says that the auditor will go in and audit. Well, It ended up with the state's attorney. State's attorney said you can look at the financials on the computer, you can't go in the office. Okay, it was kind of like walking along a line, but that's what I had to live with. My question is, would you consider, either one of you, inviting the auditor into your office for the various internal controls that need to be reviewed? Such as, okay, when I was there, and as you know, I was there for 32 years, I set up a lot of different internal control functions within the sheriff's office. So I'm not really that concerned about them because I set them up.
Carol, I'll jump to the chase. The answer is yes. I already have. The first week in office, I contacted downtown and said, come do an audit.
Thank you very
want that.
much.
I don't even want to sign a check without 2 signatures. That was the first thing I did. So the request has been made, and that's going to be continued.
Very good, thank you.
And I'll answer it.
Go ahead.
We'll be transparent from day one with everything. Just not the books, with everything.
Whoever becomes auditor will thank you as well.
Last question.
You talked about officer accountability when it comes to how they respond and react and treat the public. What happens when we have an officer that fails the litmus test? I don't know who goes first.
You want to have the first shot?
Yeah, I can tell you. What I'm going to do is put somebody in place. It might be a captain, a lieutenant, as a professional standards person, okay, to keep track of these complaints, because police, we do get complaints, and they have to be tracked, they have to be followed through, and then as the sheriff, I have to make the decision what I'm going to do with that, and or send it to the Merit Commission.
The what commission?
Sheriff's Merit Commission.
Merit Commission, thank you.
Yes. But we will be transparent on that, and this came up before. I won't investigate anything. The proper process you have to go through is have somebody do it. And if it gets where we find out we may need to bring a third party in, the state police, I welcome them.
Yes, ask the question again.
Yeah. You talked about your 4 pillars and officer accountability. If you have a hire that doesn't live up to your 4 pillars and your standards, how is that officer
There's different levels of discipline. If it's just someone that needs remediation in their work because they're not doing their work, that's one level, versus what I'll say is an integrity-based violation. Going back to community relations, I think that is key, that any law enforcement administrators are responsible. On my desk, I have a plaque that says, I am responsible. Their actions is a reflection of me, and I'm not going to tolerate that. Going back to my rules. No, they know the rules day one. They know if you break these rules, especially of integrity, and that's mistreating someone or something of lying, you're not working for me. You're not. And we have the Merit Commission. There's the unions and everything else. We all understand you have to jump through some hoops, but you got to know the business too. I've got 4 different labor unions, 4 different labor unions that I manage. You get done with one contract, you start the next one. But the goal is, it's leadership. You want to teach them the right way to do this job so they don't do those stupid things. Does it sometimes happen? Yeah. But if they do, they're accountable.
Thank you.
And I'll just add to that, for the last 20 years, I've dealt with unions, police unions, and I've also dealt with discipline, okay? So I'm well aware on how it works and the processes you have to go through. But like I said, my administration will be transparent.
Okay, last question.
Hi, guys. I don't know much about law enforcement because I don't have to deal with it on a daily basis, but I see enough of it in the news. And it was just made aware to me, sorry, I'm sick, but it's just made aware to me about a couple months ago that the police training is shoot to kill, not to shoot to disable. How do you feel about that training, and what can you do at your level of leadership to encourage the police officers that they don't have to shoot to kill, that they can shoot to disable. In my opinion, shooting to kill is a little militant. That's what the military do, is either you or me. But the police officers dealing with citizens that may have social and emotional disabilities and barriers, how can we overcome that to not encourage officers to shoot to kill?
First of all, you want to go through your career without even unholstering your weapon, but that sometimes you don't know. That could happen tonight when I walk out. It's never been taught shoot to kill. It's shoot to stop the threat. That's the training. Where the county is different than municipalities, our districts are large. You're often going on calls by yourself and your backups 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes away. So we emphasize communication, de-escalation. That's the number one goal for any call. And that's continues going to be our process. I'm not on the Illinois Training Standards Board. I mean, I think Chief Finkel could talk more about the actual training aspect, what's being done in police.
Yeah, being a deputy, you don't have backup, so you do have to be a very good talker. And on the use of force, it is shoot to stop. Shoot to stop the threat.
Okay, well, we're going to give you each a couple of minutes to summarize whatever you like, and I'll ask you in the process, say something nice about the other side of the ballot while you're in that. And
I think I'm the first to start on closures, right?
Okay.
He's got a strong name, that first name. I applaud Brian, Chief Finkel, and everything that he's done. He has done a lot for our senior services, and I say he is passionate with what he does. I have the utmost respect for what he has done in Bartonville. But in saying that, being the chief of a small department is a lot different than running a 180-man department and woman, plus another 45 contractual workers. Actually, out of everything, maintenance does not fall under the sheriff. We gave that up 10 years ago. That's under facilities. Work under our building, but they're not part of our people. But you have to know correctional health care, mental health. You have to know all these pieces. It takes a lot more than just being a police officer to be a sheriff. Again, the largest population of employees is in our correctional division. When you go to the courthouse, those aren't police officers, those are correctional officers. 80% of our workforce is either corrections officers, and if I throw the courthouse in there, that's how I get that 80%. So, I'm different than most sheriffs you've ever seen. I'm not Mike McCoy. I'm Brian Asbell. I come into this with my philosophies, and I'm swimming upstream on a lot of these. I am. Not all law enforcement like my ideas of giving people second chances. They think the bread and water, tough on crime mentality is the only way to go. I'm just the opposite. 60% of the people in jail, they're not bad people. They made mistakes. They've made mistakes, and I'm invested in that 60%. So those naysayers that say, Brian, we don't like what you're doing, I'll say, have the auditor come in and look at the books. We just dropped our population in the last 7 years by 50%. And that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money that we want to go back into the schools and get these kids credentialed. So I am a different type of sheriff. I believe in diversity. I practice diversity. I'm a good leader. My people are following me right now. We're getting a lot of good stuff done. I got stuck losing $1 million the first year. I beat it. We almost saved another $1 million. Another $1 million. And that's just by having the people work for me and making the right decisions. The unions are getting along. It's been a long time since we've had that. But go back to, I started with them. They believe in me. They see me grow through this department. I was a 22-year-old kid right out of the Army when I started. And now I'm 45 years old as a sheriff. And I'm proud to be your sheriff. Thank you.
Well, I'll say, we're professionals up here, and Brian is a good guy. No problem with Brian. Just different philosophies. One thing I'll be is the people's sheriff. I'm going to work for the people and the taxpayers, and always keeping that in mind when I make decisions. And if we make decisions, we need to include the public. As far as the employees, I think when I'm sheriff, the employees will love it. For the simple fact is, I will be fair with them and consistent with them. I'm not related to anyone out at the sheriff's department, no one. So everybody, when day one I start, gets a fair shake, all right? The cronyism, we've heard that tonight, that will stop. So what I'm going to do, I've worked with seniors for 20 years. I've worked with kids starting programs. I'm an innovator, okay? And if something's not working, we're going to stop it and find out what we can do to make it better. So I would just like to thank everybody tonight for coming, listening to us, thank the auditor candidates, and I think when you go to the voting booth, I'm asking you guys for your vote, and I want to thank you for it. And I always put my business card out. We've got literature back there. I put my phone number. It's my personal phone number. If you've got questions, feel free to call, because I will answer them and I will call you back. So thank you for having us.
Thank you both.